Oh, hi! Welcome back to my mini-series on the Oscars 2018. We've been watching a bunch of movies. Last week was my first video where we talked a little bit about hairstyling, makeup, all that good stuff. This week we have 5 new categories that we're going to delve into, so we're going to get right into it. First up, we have visual effects. So the 5 nominees in Best Visual Effects are Blade Runner 2049. The nominees are John Nelson, Gerd Nevzer, Paul Lambert, and Richard R. Hoover. Again, it's on my computer, so I'm looking down. Sorry for not keeping eye contact. We have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Nominees are Christopher Townsend, Guy Williams, Jonathan Faulkner, and Dan Sudik. I know how to read. Kong, Skull Island nominees are Steven Rosenbaum, Jeff White, Scott Benza, and Mike Menardis. Star Wars, The Last Jedi nominees are Ben Morris, Mike Mulholland, Neil Scanlon, and Chris Corbould. Finally, we have War for the Planet of the Apes, which we have Joe Lettery, Daniel Barrett, Dan Lemon, and Joel Wist. So when it comes to best visual effects, the majority of the time, and actually this is not just for best visual effects. This is not my own thing that I've come up with. But when it comes to the Oscars, oftentimes when they say, and the award goes to best visual effects, or the award for best actress goes to whomever, it's not necessarily the best, it's the most. So, especially in these categories, I often look at, okay, well, what had the most special effects thrown onto it? And with that, you have to kind of go with War for the Planet of the Apes, don't you? I mean, when you get near photorealistic ape technology where I could not tell the difference between whether that was a imagined creation in a computer or if that was actually an orangutan that they got to perform those scenes, like that is phenomenal achievement in special effects. I definitely think the people need to be rewarded for that work. That being said, I could kind of see this going to Blade Runner or Star Wars, just because they usually like to give it to the light science fiction fair that comes out in the summertime with these awards. But I'm going to guess it's going to go for War for the Planet of the Apes. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. The next 2 categories are the ones that I find that people have the most trouble understanding. And honestly, for me, for years, I would not in a million years be able to tell you what the difference was between them. So we have Best Sound Editing and Best Sound Mixing. And so the 5 movies are the exact same in each category, different nominees in each. But here's the basic difference. And I'm going to read this quick little description because I thought they captured it in better language than I could. Off of the Oscars website is where this comes from. So sound editing is basically the sound editor is responsible for all of a film's sound elements, including dialogue, sound effects, and automated dialogue replacement. That's ADR. That's what that stands for, automated dialogue replacement. So essentially, sound editing is the person who goes and captures all the sound. That car explosion, the person eating, the recording of the actual music itself. Like they're actually going and recording those elements. When it comes to sound mixing, the sound mixer ultimately determines how an audience hears everything in a film. So the sound mixer must decide what elements to emphasize and which to tone down. So the sound editor goes out and records all the sound. The sound mixer takes all that sound and then makes sure that it sounds properly. Like in this scene, I want the music to be bumped out a lot. Or in this scene, I want the special effects to be bumped up a lot. Or this one is dialogue heavy, so let's bring up the dialogue in this scene. So that's what the sound mixer does. Like I said, all of the movies are the same in these 2 categories. So we have Baby Driver, Blade Runner 2049, Dunkirk, The Shape of Water, and Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now with the sound editors, Baby Driver is Julian Slater, Blade Runner 2049 is Mark Mangini and Theo Green, Dunkirk is Richard King and Alex Gibson, The Shape of Water is Nathan Robitaille and Nelson Ferreri, Star Wars is Matthew Wood and Ren Cleese. For the sound mixers, Baby Driver is Julian Slater, Tim Cavaghan, and Mary H. Ellis. Blade Runner 2049 is Ron Bartlett, Doug Hemphill, and Mac Ruth. Dunkirk is Greg Landiger, Gary A. Rizzo, and Mark Weingarten. The Shape of Water is Christian Cook, Brad Zorin, and Glenn Gauthier. And then Star Wars is David Parker, Michael Semenuk, Ren Cleese, and Stuart Wilson. I am going to go out on a limb and say that I was looking at the LCD. I apologize. I'm going to go on a limb and say it's going to go to the same film in both categories, even though that normally doesn't happen. But I don't see how you could see any of those films that are nominated and not immediately think Baby Driver. Baby Driver was essentially a sound editing mix masterclass. The way that were able to use the soundtrack in relation to what was happening on screen, how they utilized other elements into the songs that were being portrayed on screen. Like, Baby Driver, whether you loved it or hated it, like, was sound editing and sound mixing. Like, I'm gonna guess that's who they're gonna go to in both categories. I think that there's an outside chance that Dunkirk gets either of these awards to like split it, or maybe even go 2 for 2. But honestly, I don't see how you couldn't honor Baby Driver in this category. So next up is editing, so the actual film editing. These 5 nominees are Baby Driver, which is Paul Matchless and Jonathan Amos; Dunkirk, which is Lee Smith; I, Tonya, which is Tatiana S. Regal; The Shape of Water, which is Sydney Walensky; and then 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which is John Gregory. Again, I can see this going kind of one of 2 ways. If we're thinking again of, instead of the best, it goes to the most editing, Baby Driver or I, Tonya is kind of your 2 options I think you have there. You also can again make a good case for Dunkirk in this area, especially when we're looking at those 3 different timelines that are happening and being able to seamlessly go between all 3 and making sure that they all match up properly. But I'm going to say, I'm going to call it right here, folks. The 3 awards that Baby Driver is nominated for, I think it's going to go 3 for 3. It's going to get the Sound Awards, and I think it's going to go for editing as well, with an outside chance of Dunkirk getting one of those categories as well. I will call out, because I just watched I, Tonya a couple nights ago, that its editing is pretty phenomenal, especially as it intercuts between the figure skating pretty seamlessly. Like, I'm sure that they basically superimpose someone's head onto an actual skater, or Margot Robbie's head onto an actual skater, but it looks pretty phenomenal in any of those scenes. And then we navigate into our short film categories. The first of our short film categories, we'll go into pretty much all the rest of them next week. I tried my absolute hardest to watch these. I went to every platform. I tried even the illegal ways. I really tried to see these films, and they're near impossible. The good thing that iTunes does every year is they usually release a shorts package where you'll say, here are all the shorts from this year, and you can watch them, but I think it comes out closer to the award ceremony, so that wasn't available for me at this point. So this is the short film for live action. I was only able to track down one of them. Which is the first one, DeKalb Elementary, and that's Reed Van Dyck, who is actually nominated. But the other 4 nominees are The 11 O'Clock, which is Darren Seal and Josh Lawson; My Nephew Emmett, which is Kevin Wilson Jr.; The Silent Child, Chris Overton and Rachel Shenton; and then, I'm going to totally mispronounce this probably, Watu Wote / All of Us, which is Katja Benrath and Tobias Rosen. So, DeKalb Elementary, which is the only one that I've actually seen, was fine. I wasn't actually a real big fan of the short, to be honest. It's involving an attempted school shooting with this young gentleman coming into the reception area of an elementary school, and then the secretary kind of trying to talk him down as much. That performance, the lady who is portraying the secretary, is phenomenal. She is so good. The young guy that they have acting, and I hate to say this because you're kind of like punching down a lot when you talk about these people making short films, does a fine job. It's kind of like if I were cast in a film with Meryl Streep could be doing an amazing performance. I'm still me. I'm not going to be able to like pull that movie out of being only okay. So that's how I kind of felt about DeKalb Elementary. Looking at the other nominees, I'm going to guess probably what I'm going to pick up my Oscar pool is My Nephew Emmett, which is about this like home invasion back in the 50s in an African American household. So I think that might probably is going to win for no other reason than it looked the most dramatic out of all the nominees. I don't know what any of these other ones are about, really. But My Nephew Emmett has a trailer up on Vimeo that you can watch. DeKalb Elementary is also available on Vimeo, so if you want to go and rent it, you can. But the other ones, I really have no idea what they're even about. Those are the categories we're going to talk about this week. Next week, we're going to get into the rest of the short films, all of the documentaries, and also the foreign films. So try and watch as many as you can. I'm going to look forward to delving into that a little bit more. But as I'm finding out some of these other alternate categories, it's really hard to track down all the movies to watch them. My name is Kyle. I make videos normally every Monday and Thursday. This mini-series for the Oscars is only up until the Oscars ceremony. But I would love to know what you think and who you think is going to actually win. So down in the comments below, let's continue that conversation down there.